We're talking to Rob Skiba. He's the writer, author, producer, director of the forthcoming TV series Seed on A View from the Bunker. I do want to get to a little bit of an overview of the series
Sure.
Seed and how this this awesome information, and it is fascinating. What sort of creative juices that fired? Where is this series going to go? How long do you project it lasting, and what's the story arc?
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who read episode 1, and he knows I've got a whiteboard in my studio that it's barely got 10% of what's in my head on there. I'm trying to get it out as fast as I can, but I've outlined 72 episodes. And I think that's really important going into anything like a project like this, because I don't know about you, but I was really disappointed by Lost, the way it ended.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, I guess I could compare it to Battlestar Galactica. I thought Galactica had a great ending for 4 years that you had invested in these characters. They wrapped it up nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they had a little better picture of the ending from the beginning and kind of worked in between. So that's what I want. I want to have a story that has a complete arc that's going to wrap up well. It's everything that you invest in the beginning will pay off in the end. And so I've outlined 72 episodes. I've got I've got the first episode finished and just about finished with the second one, and I'm writing the third one at the same time. But I like to say that it's Lost meets Battlestar Galactica wrapped up in an X-File, written from a biblical worldview. So without giving too much away, it's going to have the mystery and intrigue that made a show like Lost so popular. Mm-hmm. It's going to have the sci-fi appeal and maybe political commentary type things that shows like Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek had. And it's going to have, of course, the alien agenda type themes and conspiracy themes that made the X-Files so popular. But the difference is, what's going to make this different is it's going to be written very much from a biblical worldview, although I say that with the caveat that this is not going to be a Christian TV series. Does that make sense? I'm not out there trying to say, hey, it's not the next Left Behind series. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to deal with the same kind of themes that a lot of the shows are on TV right now that, quite frankly, I think are programming us to believe a lie. If you look at The Event, is another one that everybody's talking about right now. A friend of mine, I started to say earlier, has read my stuff, has seen my board, has talked with me a lot, and he said, if you took The Event and Seed and compared it in a Matrix-like framework, he said The Event would be the blue pill. You're writing the red pill.
I've only seen the first episode of The Event, but I think I get where he's going. So,
yeah. They've been writing movies about alien encounters and things and UFOs and all that since the 40s, since Roswell. But it's all if you've been watching the History Channel lately, there's a whole series called Ancient Aliens,
mm-hmm,
and they're really going along this line that ancient visitors from other worlds came here and seeded our planet, and human beings are the result of that. And so I have to ask the question. They had this supposed UFO sighting or whatever, whether it's balloons or whatever, in Manhattan just 2 days ago.
Right.
But UFO sightings are increasing exponentially every year.
Strange and mysterious lights hovering above East El Paso tonight. What's even more strange, very similar lights were spotted in Manhattan just 2 days ago. Above the skies of Northeast and East El Paso tonight, a sight that was a little more than stunning. This is what one of our photographers, Ram Moreno, caught on video. One solitary light that appears to be falling in the sky. But that light suddenly breaks apart into two, then three separate lights. Those lights then just freeze in the air and begin to hover. Eventually, a fourth light can be seen. Then the lights appear to be hovering and then moving in a strange pattern. Then they all disappear. We received a lot of phone calls into our newsroom tonight from people in the northeast part of town and on the east side, all of them wanting to know what was going on. And the descriptions from everyone calling basically the same. One caller thought a plane was falling. Another thought it was a meteorite. Others, though, said it looked like a UFO. Now, you want to get really creepy? Check this video out. Just 2 days ago, in the sky above Manhattan, people froze on the street there as they saw these three lights hovering in the middle of the day. And check this out. The three lights are close to each other, then spread out into this triangle pattern. Now, look at the patterns side by side. This from Manhattan and the other tonight in El Paso. I gotta tell you, they do look eerily similar.
What's going to happen one day when one of these balls of light opens up and somebody pops out and says, "Hi, we created you"? What are we going to believe?
So the Christian message then in Seed, is it how are you going to try to work that in?
I am going to take this much more from the Genesis 6 perspective in terms of what I believe all this alien stuff is that we're seeing. I personally believe it's repackaged Nephilim activity. If I'm to take Jesus' words literally, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man.
The trick, or the difficulty, which I discovered in writing The God Conspiracy, is to try to present a particular worldview without beating the viewer over the head.
Absolutely.
How are you striking that balance?
Follow the same model they've followed. I was talking with a guy last night, and he said, we have to be as good at telling the truth as the devil is at telling lies. And so if you look at the way we have been programmed to believe a lie, everybody's got an agenda, everybody's got a worldview that they put forth in their art, they put forth in their writing, and they put forth in their movies or whatever. So we're all on even ground in that regard. I think the problem that Christians run into is they always want to preach, the Bible says all the time, in a venue where people want to be entertained. People don't go to the movies and watch TV to be preached unless they're surfing to a preaching channel. They go to be entertained. So there's something you can do with science fiction that's pretty amazing, because people go into science fiction with a certain level of suspension of disbelief. If you've sold them on whatever your concept is, they'll start watching it. And my hope is that the themes and the things that we bring into this, the symbols and whatnot that we put in there, will get people talking, will get people blogging, will get people arguing and debating. The movie Knowing, I found to be a very interesting movie. And the reason I thought it was interesting is because, you get three-quarters of the way through this movie, and there's a big budget, A-list movie star, and he calls his dad about three-quarters of the way through the movie and says, "Dad, when you were preaching about the gifts of the Spirit," and starts talking about prophecy. Now, we can argue all day long about the way the movie ended. That's not where I'm going with it. When I left that theater, I said, if this movie is meant to get people asking questions and debating each other, it's going to do its job. And it wasn't a week later that a major movie reviewer came out and said almost his exact words. I think debate is healthy. I think discussion is healthy. And that's what I want to do. I want to create stories that are intriguing, that put some of these elements that I've talked about here, and a lot more that I'm not talking about because I don't want to give everything away, but put it out there in a way that will get people. I quite honestly, I can envision the church giving me a bit of trouble every now and then too, just because of the nature of some of the subjects we're talking about, same kind of problems that Russ Dizdar and others run into when they talk about these things. But people who get involved with watching the TV show and get excited about it and try to figure things out, they'll create their own fan-based websites. They'll start blogging, start trying to figure things out. And, my hope is that they do start doing their own research and finding a lot of cool stuff out, just like I found out. And then I didn't have to preach anything.
Our guest is Rob Skiba on A View from the Bunker. He's the writer, director, producer of the forthcoming television series Seed. Bunker phone is open if you've got a question for Rob about the use of an entertainment medium like television to plant a seed in the minds of people. 646-652-4429. The enemy that you present, I don't want to give anything away that you don't want to give away, that makes his appearance in the pilot episode. And you were very gracious to allow us to read a copy of the script. And I'm intrigued and would be intrigued as a non-believer, let's say, because the message is not overt enough early on to, I think, turn off somebody who's interested in the topic but not yet accepted the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Right. But the enemy that you present up front in the opening episode, explain why you chose that particular enemy. Was that inspired by your visit to Caesarea Philippi?
Are you referring to the creature that's depicted in the trailer?
Yes. Yeah,
he's. I'm not going to say he's per se the enemy. He is something that is pretty significant. Azazel, or Azazel, depending on how you want to pronounce it. God says something very interesting about him in the books of Enoch and Joshua. It says that he ascribed all sin that was taking place when the Watchers started doing what they were doing in Genesis 6. He said, he looked down and the archangels are up there and they're talking and they're looking at what these fallen angels are doing, and they say, God, how long are you going to allow this to go on? And God says, okay, here's the deal, basically. Michael, you do this, Gabriel, you do that, and there's a couple other archangels, Uriel and Raphael. And he says to Raphael to bind Azazel in the desert place, a place called Dudiel, and keep him in chains until the day of judgment, and ascribe all sin to that creature. Now, that creature is actually mentioned in the Bible in the book of Leviticus. I believe it's Leviticus 16, but don't quote me on that. You can do the research. But where the Jews would sacrifice a lamb for the sins, and they would lay their hands on the scapegoat and send the scapegoat out to Azazel. Now, that's in our Bible. But if that's all you read, you have no idea who or what Azazel is, right? And so from that perspective, if you're thinking all sin is ascribed to Azazel, there's some very intriguing plot points for people to start thinking about in that regard. But he's definitely not the main bad guy going into this.
Oh, okay.
He just he's the one that sets Zach on his journey. Let me put it that way. You'll see more of him later because as I get to episode 72, start getting towards the end. In terms of the story, the end is what the Bible says the end is, and some interesting things are going to happen in the end, that being some of these really bad fallen angels are going to be released from their burial places in the desert. More of them come out of the river Euphrates, etc. So you've definitely not heard the last of that creature.
Okay.
He's not the main bad guy. No.
Not the main villain, huh?
Yeah, no.